I finished this thing a couple months ago. It's got type 3 carbs. I talk about this in my other video. You can see I plugged the shaft. There's a hole that for the pull off for the choke. It's right here. Vacuum pull off for the choke. I stuffed solder down that hole to plug it up. So you don't have it, because I've cut off the choke. You just get rid of a bunch of stuff you don't need. And potential, this is an imperfect seal right here. So even as it comes new, this is a potential air leak, because the joint is right about, see where it joins? So you could have an air leak there and not really know about it, but that's the choke pull off. So it's plugged. You could, but like I said, just fill the hose with solder, or you don't melt it, you just push it in. You could put a little piece of metal right here to block it, a little piece of feeler gauge or something at the gasket. But the solder will work. And I got rid of the terrible alternator and the overcomplicated electronic ignition. So it's got the $100 stuff. You can see the red and black wire there. And then the regulators over here. These are from a 36, these air cleaners. And it doesn't leak a drop. There's the oil pan. See that? It's like brand new. This guy's really particular. Before, it leaked virtually everywhere. I mean, if it was leaking here, it was leaking out of the screw-on aluminum billet oil filler, which will always leak. Unless you weld it to the car, maybe it wouldn't leak. But there's no baffle for this and those things either. And you're trying to keep the oil out of the air cleaner. It's impossible, but a baffle helps. Those things have no baffle. The thing has IRS. I got it shifting just right. These were falling off because they're held on with Allen screws. I've never seen that. They're aftermarket. I managed to get them so that I had to change all the screws, the little set screws for these things. I had to literally take door latches apart, because like a hollow cigarette box, like a package of cigarettes is hollow. When you put, these things are similar in shape. When you put the bolt through it and you tighten it, one or two of them were compressing. I had to take them apart and put spacers to keep the latch from compressing and not working, because the moving parts can't move, because it's like standing on a cigarette package. It gets smashed and nothing moves. I got one key to work all the way around. It's locked. Let's see. Better be locked. Had a lot of trouble with these locks. I had to take this striker. I took a German striker, latch, and the new fake, and I cut the end off I've never seen this. The German one has nothing on this end for any screws. The old German one I had. I think there's a later one has it on the end. This one here had four side, or like a box, like a cigarette box, but it was closed on all ends. So I cut this end off the fake, and I welded it to the German one to get it to work, because the fake one had a U-shaped torsion spring to return this, and it would stick, and you'd have to hit the door, and then it would come out. Couldn't fix it. I could have, but I would have spent a year on it trying to make that the sliding end of that U-shaped torsion spring work and not get stuck. So now it's got a coil spring because it's a German one, but I had to change that. I got this real close to flush, but I spent a lot of time on this, a lot of filing. This is a German steering box in a Brazilian bus. If you have a Brazilian bus and you have 7 turns here, that's a Brazilian bus. This one's got 2 3/4 or something, full from lock to lock. The only thing I had to do was change the steering box and the pitman arm that goes on it, and that was it. Nothing else. The nut's different. The steering box that was in this is sold right now, and this one had 90 degrees of play or 70 degrees of play, and it was brand new. And from what I hear, the ones that are being sold that say they only fit in a Brazilian bus, you don't want it anyway, because it's probably going to be the same thing as this was. Now, you'll find this easily on the internet. I'm not going to say any names, but that's what there's plenty of them out there from what I can see. And a couple months ago, they said they were not available because I was going nuts looking for one, and finally got some information. And it was correct that you can just stick the German one in it, but you got nothing else changed. Nothing else was changed. I got this to work really. When you're working on this thing and you can't get your car to shift, I had to make the coupling, which is solid steel that goes down here, the one in the front, I had to make it about 10 millimeters longer. Now, this is how you do this. You want to get this thing to work, and you're going insane. You got to get the transmission in neutral, okay? And then when everything's in neutral, the socket that the bottom of this goes in should be in the middle of the hole. And again, it goes back and forth, right? Like this is neutral. Goes back and forth. So you take, with this out, you make it so that that little socket is in the middle, front to rear. And if this thing wouldn't go on with this in that position, and it's got to be in that position. So I had to literally, I think I cut it. I'll show you. This guy right here. There's my modified coupling. See the rubber hose on it? It's welded in the middle. I think I cut it in half or something and put a stud in it so I could adjust it because I had the stud in the middle. Then I welded it together, and then I slid plastic or this rubber like water hose. I don't know what it is. That actually might be the oil hose for a 911 or something, but just to make it look nice. But I had to make that 10 millimeters longer to achieve the goal, which is an absolute, for that socket to be centered in the access hole, the hole through the floor. That's the only way it would work. Now it shifts fine. Now these bolts, they don't go in the original holes either. I had to fiddle with that. That's just a matter of moving a little teeny bit to the left, moving a little teeny bit to the right, and you can get it to work, and the thing works like new. This rubber thing is a later one. I didn't see one available for this year because this tube that this shifter goes through to the back is smaller on this. It's like an early American version. And so I had trouble with it because there's rust in the front in the tube on the bottom, and it kept shredding the bushings, at least the front one. So the thing is this, when the bushing is on, I hope my camera's probably upside down, but I keep flipping it around. I'm sorry about that, but the bushings move with the shaft. The shaft goes forward and back. The bushings move forward and back. But think of this. If the bushings don't move and they're stationary, then it's going to work better. It might last longer because instead of having the little like badminton birdie wings rubbing on the tube, you've got the shaft rubbing on a flat surface that goes all the way around the circumference of itself. So because those little wings aren't moved, because the wings wear out, the middle of the thing doesn't wear out. So those things, they don't move because they kept breaking. The little socket that goes into the tube, or the little peg of plastic that goes into the tube to keep it from working, they kept snapping off anyway. So finally, in the end, what I ended up doing is just, I think I glued them on and used baling wire and put them on really tight and stuck them in. And I figured if they come loose, they can only move back, and they're not going to move because the shaft's going to move within them. You see, and so the thing might last forever. But the main thing here that nobody does is, like, when you do this in a place like this in this tube, there's no such thing as too much lubrication. The same goes for handbrake cables and clutch cables. Because it looks like most guys, when they're putting these things in, their objective is not to put the cable in, but to keep their hands clean, okay? And that, if you look at another video of mine, I go into this in great detail, but there's my that's a late model bus reservoir hose there, and it's joined to a piece of copper tubing and a bunch of other stuff to get my slope on my reservoir hose down to the master cylinder, right? Because it's got to be downhill slope everywhere. And it had a big dip in it, if you see in the other video. Then the hose was actually sweating brake fluid. That's how bad it was. So after I was done working on it, a couple weeks later, or maybe less, this lock wasn't working. The key wouldn't turn it, so I had to pull it apart. Thankfully, it comes apart and had to fiddle with the tumbler. One tumbler was hanging up and got it to be fine now. And then a little bit after that, now while I was driving this and I was all done with the thing, I get all done, I was working on the lights, and I couldn't get this light to blink right. Well, it had an aftermarket speedometer in it. I won't say who made it, but they're out there. And it went to 120 or something kilometers, which is like 160, whatever it was. Okay, whatever. That's nice. Put lots of stupid parts on. So, yeah, my camera's upside down. So I'm going to go back to this way. I'm sorry. So this light wouldn't blink right with the LED. So I went through a whole lot of changes to put a tube in it to channel the light bulb, because there's a socket. This one had a socket for nighttime illumination behind where the LED was. So it had a place for a bulb like a German one would have for the turn signal. So I made a tube out of a felt pen, and I took the thing apart and took out the LED and retained the green lens. And then I made it so the light bulb would aim. I had to glue it in. It was a big hassle, and I got the thing working primo. So then I drive the car, and the thing is stopping at 55 kilometers an hour. The needle wouldn't go past it, and the generator light's flashing at high RPM. That was because of the LED. Now it's got a solid state, modern, the voltage regulator. I think I showed it to you in the video, which is the only kind you should use. And so I had to change the speedometer anyway, and I spent a long time making this work on the new fake and getting it in and getting all this in. And, this is not easy to do, particularly because of this. When you have the normal ignition switch, it's pretty simple. But this is a project getting this to work. I had to bridge there's a metal plate that goes from one side of this to the other to help support the center bolt on this, which was missing. And I put a piece of metal across it, like 1/8 by 1/2, with a big hole in the middle for the screw to not thread through but fall through. And it helps support it so I could get this thing up flush, because you could put your finger in here before. And then initially I said black wheel. He goes, yeah. So I put a black wheel on it. And then he goes, can you put the white one on? I'm okay. So there's the white one. Now that thing, I don't know where to get one of these. That thing is made out of rubber or something. It's terrible, that grab handle. And then this was missing all the pieces inside. I got all that working. I got rid of these LEDs. Whoever put the headliner in forgot the back dome light, or just decided not to put it in. And then I had to do some fiddling with washers and this and that to get this to work. This thing was opening, and it was 90 degrees off the handle. So when you opened it or closed, I remember which one it was hitting this. Had a lot of things. The seatbelts are okay, though. They're good seatbelts. They retract really good. Some of these things they're pretty weak. So it's got some good things on it, but pretty much anything on this car that moved, I had to fix. Yeah, the door handles literally just came right off. If you want to shut the door when it got here, they just come right off. And the German cars have a hole in the door right around here and a hole in this. So you can put a screwdriver to it and try to pull this down to get this to mate, okay? This one has a hole in the frame, but there's no hole in the door. Or the other way around, I don't remember, but I drilled one of the two so I could do that. You got to drill it in just the right place, because when you put the screwdriver in, you don't want it to just go in the hole. You want it to go up towards the hole. You got to be able to do it, and then pry down to pull this down. Now, there was a huge gap right here. And the reason is because the bottom of this, where this thing protrudes, the pivot for the vent wing, there's a recess in the top of the door to mate with the bracket for that pivot. So the welded on bracket will have some room to come down so this can happen. It was impossible. So I ended up getting a hacksaw literally and making the hole bigger so this would go all the way down. And these are from Wolfsburgwest. They work. These things, these are new. That was a half hour each getting these guys to fit. I bought new ones because the other ones were shredded because they put a pop rivet through here, and this part was out here instead of inside. And so because of the pop rivet, the hole was so big you couldn't put a screw in it. So I bought new ones, and I spent at least a half an hour on each one of these, filing it and trial fitting it over and over again to get it so it actually line up with this. But the thing about it, and then I also fixed this ashtray, I think. Let's see if it still works. Yeah, see, because when it was here, it's a brand new ashtray, right? So you open it, and it's an anti-smoking ashtray. In other words, if you open it, it'll just close. But not anymore. You just kind of go, really hard in that direction. You could, I may have bent the lid a little, I don't know, but I don't think anybody cares. But it's kind of nice to have everything on the car working, you know what I mean?